Who can save us from the AFD? Please don't say Sahra Wagenknecht. Armed with whiskey and G's and Lynchburg lemonades, the intrepid megacanners try to figure out who Die Linke's most notorious politician is and what she wants. Plus, finally, young Berliners will be allowed to vote in state elections as the cool capital drags itself into the 21st century. What took you so long, homies?
It's time for another episode of Megan's Megacan. I'm Megan. I'm here in Berlin with ex-Berliner magazine. And Konrad Werner. Hello, Konrad.
Hello.
How's it going?
I'm okay. How are you?
Good. A bit warm.
It's lovely to see you.
It's very nice to see you always. I'm sorry I was 32 minutes late, having asked you if you could do earlier yesterday. Even for me, that's taking the fucking piss.
I know, as a teacher as well. I mean, you must punctuality must be one of the
things that I berate students about all the time, and
the pillars of your life.
Hypocritical thing.
Okay, well, you're here now.
I'm here now, and will we just start drinking?
Yeah,
class.
But can I plug something?
Oh yes, please.
So I'm showing my film again next week. In the Backhaus Projects. Mm-hmm. We did a podcast about it a few episodes ago. You might remember, listeners. I know you remember.
Yes.
But it's called We're All Going to Die. It's a documentary, and it's on at the Backhaus Projects on Weserstrasse 168 in Neukölln. And while you're there...
When is it? You said next week. That's
next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday. What time?
8 p.m.
8 p.m.
Which would give you, if you come a little earlier, you might want to make an evening of it and have a lovely Scottish fish and chips meal at the Crazy Bastard Kitchen next door. Free plug there for,
friend of the pod.
Friend of the pod, yeah.
You should 100% do that.
Yeah.
What am I doing next Wednesday? I think that's what I'm doing next Wednesday.
Oh, you can? Oh, yeah, that'd be great. I actually organised this screening mainly because my mum's in town.
Oh, that's nice.
And
you can go see the whole family, everyone.
Yeah.
You can have Sebastian's food of Basti's beer can when I'm away. We didn't do that this summer. Oh, because you were away at the same... Anyway, we didn't schedule our summer as well.
No, I didn't do a Basti's beer can. I mean, he's so unreliable.
His food is not unreliable, I have to say. It is top notch. So, yeah, you should absolutely do that. And if you can't make next Wednesday, you can come to the Podfest Berlin and see the film.
Oh, yeah, that's another thing.
On the 15th of October.
Yes, and we've got some really special guests lined up, which we will reveal closer to the time.
Ooh.
That's going to be a really good event, actually, I think. Got a good feeling in my bones about that.
Yeah.
It's going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because also we got a musical guest on that day.
Ooh.
I haven't told you that yet. But
I'm hearing this live.
we will be, hopefully, if things go well, you may be debuting our new theme tune.
Really?
At the live Podfest.
Oh, that's cool. All right, I'm excited.
Yeah, cool. So anyway, now we can start drinking.
Yes. All right. So obviously, because I was running late, I have seen some new megas about the place, but I haven't But if I'm having to do a Späti run, the megas and Spätis are now €5 a pop because of inflation. So I'm not taking any risks. So you can have one of the old favourites. Oh, they're like condensation-y cold.
Oh, good. Oh, yeah.
Whiskey like and ginger. So JD and ginger or JD Lynchburg lemonade. I'm happy with either. So it's a hard toss-up. I can't decide.
They're the two best ones.
I know.
I think I'll have the Lynchburg lemonade.
Right,
please.
maybe I should have just got two of one. I'm actually very pleased.
It's nice when the can is sort of sweating like this,
isn't it? It's because honestly, people. And I mean, I love summer. Yeah. I'm nervous about winter, but even I am like, it can get a bit colder now. It's fine.
Yeah.
All right.
Good. Cheers.
Ooh, that's delicious.
Yeah.
I haven't had any mega cans since I saw you last, I don't think, because I was in Ireland and then Prague. Just drank so much Guinness. Oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone should just go to Ireland.
It's good, isn't it? Guinness. Can you get that in? Can you get like a mega can version of that? You know, like a what's that Guinness with the Baileys in it?
Oh, It's not Guinness with Bailey's in it. It's called a baby Guinness, and it's...
A baby Guinness?
I think it's like Kahlua with a Bailey's top, and it looks like a little Guinness.
Can you get that in a can?
I don't know, because it's just liqueurs, so you'd just be drinking 330 mils of like... Yeah, that would be even more potent than a mega can.
Wow.
No, they haven't
The
really
mind
got any of the
boggles.
Irish whiskies. I don't know if they do like a Jameson or something.
Yeah.
What's been happening? What are we talking about today?
So, next time we do this show, I will have been to Bavaria.
Ooh.
And have been at various, if all goes well, because I'm going next week, because it's the run up to the Bavarian election, and it's Oktoberfest, and I'm going to Munich next week.
It's all kicking off down in Bayern, isn't it?
Yeah. So we've all kind of covered all the Aiwanger stuff, but closer to home in Berlin, an interesting, a monumental reform in electoral law has been passed by the Berlin Parliament in the last few days, and now, as of the next state election, 16-year-olds will be able to vote.
Woohoo!
And this isn't quite a newish thing. It's actually several states already have it, including Baden-Württemberg, Brandenburg, Bremen, Hamburg, Meckpomm, and Schleswig-Holstein already have it. And of course, the European election is also from 16, and of course the what they call the communal elections, the local council.
So they've already been able to vote, the 16-year-olds in the like local council.
Yeah.
But this is actually for the state government, the state parliament, which
is quite interesting because the CDU is in favour of it, and at a national level, they're not in favour of it. The federal CDU is against lowering the voting age for federal elections. But the Berlin CDU is in favour of lowering it for Berlin state elections.
Are they polling quite well amongst young Berliners? I find that unbelievably difficult to imagine.
I don't know why. I think they were like ambivalent about it, and they kind of had to be talked around to it. The kind of more left-wing parties, the Greens and the Linke, have always been in favour of it because most of their voters are young. AfD is always against it because most of their voters are really old.
Because that's what I was thinking was interesting. Like, would voters, the young voters, first-time voters in the last... So that was the federal election. That was all Greens and FDP. I think FDP... So would that then swing things for the AfD? But then you're saying they're not against it.
I mean, I think it goes a bit beyond party political tactics a little bit, because this kind of, it just seems like a sensible thing to do and a modern thing to do. And the fact that most parliaments in Germany, quite a lot of parliaments in Germany have already done it.
Yeah.
And, the world hasn't ended. I think they just sort of accepted it. Yeah, I mean, it is quite good. And there have been several studies, and whenever they do, maybe you could add some context to this, but
I can just bring like anecdotal stuff.
Apparently, there have been like studies that say like there's not much difference in political awareness between a 15-year-old and a 25-year-old. I mean, apparently there is that they know just as much about politics, and also there's some studies saying that they're very young people are really annoyed about not being able to vote.
Yeah.
And also confused about which elections they are supposed to be able to vote in and which they're not.
Yeah, it is quite complicated, and I think it is up to schools, who obviously can't tell them who to vote for. Obviously, that's a big thing, particularly in Germany, for obvious historical reasons. And as a teacher, you have to try and find this weird... It's very difficult to teach without kids getting a sense of your kind of political... Unless you're teaching like maths or something. But
right. But yeah, how are your 16-year-olds? And then
very, very, very politically aware.
Yeah.
For the most part, I would say the majority of them. That is slightly to do with the demographic of our school. But I think in general... because of social media and because of the democratization then of news a little bit, kids aren't really going to listen to like the radio or whatever, or things that people might do when they... I'm trying to think like why would a 25-year-old in the past, before social media, have had more political awareness than a 15-year-old? And maybe you had to kind of read the newspapers. It becomes kind of like... when you go to work, you have to talk about these things. I don't know. It's kind of more expected, whereas kids were like,
yeah.
I don't know. I'm completely speculating there. But I think now, because it's so, if you want to inform yourself about stuff, And we live in a thing where celebrities are talking about their political opinions in a way that they wouldn't have, I don't think, whenever I was growing up. For better and worse, kids, if they don't know about politics, it's because they're choosing not really to get engaged. And I'm not sure that apathy would necessarily change as they grow older. I don't think that's age. I don't know. And I think it's unfair, really unfair, particularly when climate change is such a huge fucking thing. And it is them who is going to be affected. Like, of course they should be able to vote. And certainly our 16-year-olds are well capable of informing themselves and making a vote. And it's also a good thing, sorry, to come back to the school's point, like, we do make a point when there's votes coming up of talking about it in lessons and making them aware, okay, this is what you're able to vote for, this is what you're not. This person in the class, you know, because we do also have like 18-year-olds and stuff, we are allowed to vote in the communal elections, but we are not allowed to vote in that one like you guys because we don't have the German citizenship. How do we feel about that? So there's that because of the sort of nature of our school. I'm sure a lot of schools in Berlin.
Do they get pissed off, the younger ones? The ones that can't vote?
Yeah, I think so. I've mainly done this with older students sort of coming up to vote because otherwise I just feel like, well, why would I get them to? And we do have like school votes and stuff sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're really into it. And I think it's...
it's the European election coming up in May. Are you going to do a project?
In May?
Next May is the European election.
Oh, that's a good thing. Yeah. We do tend to do, like, we did one year where they all made up their own, like when we were having a federal election, they made up their own political parties and stuff and wrote speeches and everything. I think also, like, a lot of the research at the moment is showing we have a mental health crisis amongst young people because of pandemic, because of climate change. And one thing that can, whether it helps, you know, we're all frustrated by the lack of action and how slow everything goes. But on an individual level, something that does help is getting involved and feeling into something that you cover in your amazing film. Giving younger people a vote and feeling like they can be part of something might have like an effect in that way as well on an individual level. Even if they're likely to watch their parties. But at least they get to participate. I don't know, or maybe that's going to make them even more demoralised. Who knows?
And do you think, because this was discussed on this podcast that I was listening to, about whether parties would have to change the way they do political campaigns when the voters also include younger people? Will they have to do like more TikTok videos, or is that really patronising? Because that was like what one of the people said. And I wondered if that was true.
I mean, I think this is a really strange
will they have
thing.
To
like, people have students have the language to understand politics and everything. Yeah, you probably want to do some stuff on social media because that's where they're going to find out. But I would imagine that's going to get twisted into some, like, if you're saying the CDU on a federal level is like, well, we shouldn't be debating politics on TikTok. And I was like, what, you want to fucking do it in a beer tent?
Well, yeah.
You assholes, and only talk to the teenagers down there or who's... I think what I hope they're going to take on is actually thinking about how to serve younger people and focusing on that as that demographic grows. What are our climate change commitments? Like, what can we, rather than being cynical about it, like, oh, do we need to do TikTok? Like, could we
they will have to
think about fucking education in a bit more of a realistic way, and not just because no one understands education better than, well, teachers and also young people. And we go through their manifestos and stuff when we did this project, and I remember one student who I would have really thought was like really into the FDP, that kind of exactly what I would thought, like, yeah. And he was like presenting on them, he was doing their manifesto and everything, and he was like, yeah, I looked at their climate stuff, it's not going to work. It literally is. What they're proposing is fantastical and insane. I was like, okay, cool. So even...
like the hydrogen stuff and all that.
Yeah. Like even students who I would maybe peg as being like, oh, they'll be really into digitalization, they love their tech, all of that stuff. Even they were like, that's made me think. So actually revising their education sections and their things like digitalization in a way that is not just paying lip service to people who are actually more interested in cars, retirement rate, like pensions, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it can only be a good thing. And I think that it's kind of long overdue, especially for a city like Berlin.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, anyway.
But who are they going to vote for? I'd imagine I struggle.
Yeah.
If I were, who do you... Everyone...
I know, well, we could talk about that because a lot of Germans in general, not just young people, feel like they're not represented by the current parties that they can vote for. And that is why someone called Sahra Wagenknecht is currently very popular because there's I can already.
Will I tell you what I know about this? Because this has been a huge news story, kind of brewing and bubbling along. So, from what I understand, Die Linke, which is the left, which is the left party in Germany, which would be, I would say, my party that I would gravitate towards kind of ideologically. And then there's various criticisms that are emerging about it. And it is a very fractured and split party at the moment. Like the left seems to have this identity crisis. I mean, in general, worldwide. And I'm also talking about the left, like the party in Germany. So Sahra Wagenknecht has emerged as this quite charismatic member within, I don't know any more details than this. She's in Die Linke.
Yeah.
But she is sort of bringing the culture war into her party, from what I understand. I might be wrong, but she's kind of going, we're losing votes. No one wants to vote for Die Linke because everybody is paying attention to like gender pronouns and no one is looking out for the workers.
Yeah, exactly. She's like it's really complicated, but essentially the Linke is in a massive crisis.
Yeah.
I'm
just going to reach forward and get some peanuts. You keep talking.
Okay.
This mega is really going to my head. I didn't have enough lunch.
Yeah, you need a little bit of salt. So they're losing votes. They're like bleeding supporters. They're very divided, partly because of Sahra Wagenknecht. If there hadn't been for like 3 direct candidates in the last election, they would have dropped out of parliament altogether. But it was thanks to people like Gregor Gysi that they even managed to get into the parliament, managed to stay in the parliament, because if the rule is if you have 3 directly elected MPs, then you're in the parliament no matter, even if you don't get 5% of the vote, which they didn't get. So yeah, it's been divided for a long time, and Sahra Wagenknecht is the most prominent and famous person in politician that the left party has. Yeah. And she is sticking with the party for now, but for years now, and especially in the last few months, she's been flirting with starting her own party and splitting off. There was a survey a few weeks ago, a couple of months ago, that said that about 20% of Germans could imagine, in principle, voting for a Sahra Wagenknecht only party, like a party that she led. And so
20%.
Yeah, which
That's
is quite
wild.
high. And what was interesting about that is quite a lot of the voters that said that they would vote for her were voters who currently vote for the AfD. So So they were people who were like, and the AfD, if you probably know, they've been like doing really well in the opinion polls. They're now the biggest party in all the eastern German states. Yep. And there was a new survey out saying that they would get 32% of the vote in Brandenburg, which is way ahead of the second place SPD on 20%. And So there is this potential that if she started a party, that she could split the far right vote, and but she's also very controversial. I mean, she says controversial things about immigration, and she says that, and she is very frustrated with her own party's position and she is a bit culture worry, and the other thing is about she's really good at media, and she does a lot of talk shows. I mean, that's the reason why she's so famous, is because she's
she's quite kind of like glamorous, looking. She's not your usual like left wing female.
No,
she's kind of like a Sarah Palin looking kind of lady.
And she's really clever and quick-witted, and she knows how to like get her ideas across in talk shows, which she does a lot. And whenever they get a left-wing person on talk shows, it's normally her, which really, really pisses off the rest of her party, because they don't see her as representing her of representing the party's views.
Right.
She's kind of representing her own views, and she's constantly flirting with splitting off, because she's always criticizing her own party. And now it's got to the stage where her own party have basically made her an ultimatum. They said, either you commit to staying in the Linke or you start your own party. And there's like this sort of, you've got to clarify your position, you know. But she's being really the Bild Zeitung did a thing a couple of weeks ago saying that she definitely decided to start her own party. They got really excited, and then she denied it. And so there's always like this, there's a sort of
this is just
but the thing is, would be a huge risk for her, because it's not that easy starting your own party from scratch. It's all very well doing well in the opinion polls, but actually converting that into real votes in an election is much more complicated, because you need the whole infrastructure of a political party. You need all the volunteers, you need all the voters, you need all the people to campaign for you. You need candidates. She can't just stand on her own. You know, she needs to have all these candidates who would support her, and she would probably need to get a few left-wing, left party MPs to split off from the Bundestag to come with her, and she probably has a couple. She has a few that would come with her and join the new party, which would like really destroy the left party in general. And so it's like really, and so she's a bit of a, and the reason why she became famous, especially last year, is because she did this sort of peace movement. She started the whole peace movement against, you know, like making peace with Russia over Ukraine.
This is another huge issue that the left, and this is really what's made me realize that I'm like, well, I can't review, like the Linke has quite an interesting history, and that it came from what was it called? SED?
The SED, which she was a member of when she was very young. She's been a member of the left party in her whole adult life. Yeah.
So the SED was the ruling party of the
GDR.
The GDR. I'm just trying to remember all my my acronyms. The GDR in English. And so people have issues with that, obviously, with their really shitty history. And they are, my God, they can't get their story straight on Russia. They're like, oh, war's bad, but also, let's make peace. I stand for peace. And I'm like, that's all very well. We can all stand for peace. Of course, we all stand for fucking peace. But Putin is not marching his troops into your fucking village. It's more complicated than that. You're going to have to give us some other line other than peace. Why don't we talk to him? Because there's no talking to psychopaths. Like, there's just... Anyway, I'm not simplifying. But that is like part of my...
But he doesn't want peace. I mean...
Of course he fucking doesn't.
I mean,
and all of these people like handing out like, oh, let's go and be peaceful. I was like, are you going to do it?
Yeah.
Away you to the Kremlin there, and you get him to talk to you about fucking peace like no one else has tried. Yeah. Oh, it drives me crazy.
And it is really like the worst thing in life is when politicians sing John Lennon's Give Peace a Chance or Imagine.
Yes.
And that's what Sahra Wagenknecht did alongside Alice.
No.
Yeah, in the big rally. They had a big rally last year, and it was full of like Querdenker and a few neo-Nazis, but by no means all neo-Nazis. But there was a broad, let's say, a broad cross-section of people who do not feel represented by the mainstream political parties. They gathered. There was about, I don't know, several tens of thousands of people around the Brandenburg Gate, and they sang Imagine by John Lennon alongside Alice Schwarzer,
did that who's at the beginning of fucking lockdown.
Alice Schwarzer, who's like one of the most famous feminists in Germany.
Oh.
And yeah, so they kind of like they did this thing, and it is really embarrassing. And she also had her, I don't know if you know about her husband, Oscar Lafontaine. It's a whole big long story about Wagenknecht's husband.
Go on. I've got some can left.
Okay.
I feel like I might have heard this and then I've forgotten it.
So Sahra Wagenknecht is married to...
I'm just going to some more peanuts.
Okay. Okay. Is married to Oscar Lafontaine, who was once a member of the SPD and was once finance minister of Germany under Gerhard Schröder,
right.
and who defected from the SPD, split off and joined what became the Left Party later over the whole thing with unemployment reform, which Schröder came in, and he did like a more kind of like Blairish thing where he said you have to work more, basically. You have to,
the market will sort it out, lads. It's fine.
Yeah. So he was really pissed off about it because he was like a really old school socialist, and he didn't feel like represented in the SPD anymore. He split off, and he kind of like, it was a huge political earthquake that he started like 20 years ago. That was Oscar Lafontaine
leading that, right?
Yeah, and he was also, and now he's married to. I'm just
going to look at pictures of him because Sahra Wagenknecht is a real looker. Obviously, I'm not.
Oscar Lafontaine is a bit older than her, probably. Anyway.
So.
Anyway, so he was also on stage singing.
Good Lord. A bit older. He's 80.
Yeah, he's old, yeah. She's about 53 or 4, something like that.
That's an enormous... What? Right. I'm glad.
But he's like, he's one of the most famous, I mean, especially in the 90s and the early 2000s, he's one of the most famous socialist politicians. Anyway, so
right.
yeah.
So a lot to unpack here.
Lots to unpack here. And they were all three of them on stage, Alice Schwarzer, Sahra Wagenknecht, Oscar Lafontaine, singing Imagine. And it's so annoying. It's kind of like difficult to express how annoying that is to see people do that. And but she is very popular, and she's especially popular amongst... this a kind of a demographic of voters who are, and so I talked to a political scientist who was investigating all this stuff, and apparently there is no political party that covers the socially conservative but financially left-wing demographic in Germany, right? When you get those sort of squares. You get those like that square, and there's like that. There's a big space basically of voters who do hate political correctness, but also want the state to intervene in and to help poor people.
Yeah.
And she really speaks to those people.
Yeah.
According to this political scientist I spoke to. Now, how many people that actually is up for debate.
Yeah.
And also, there aren't that many, if you could look across Europe, there aren't that many other parties that also cover that. Although there are, weirdly, in the Netherlands, there's a party now which is sort of doing really well, which is kind of like the Farmers' Party. It's kind of helping farmers.
Oh, yeah, those lads.
Yeah. So that's the only real equivalent anywhere else in Europe to this idea. So anyway, she has to, if she's going to do this, she would have to do it now, and she's promised to make a decision before the end of this year about whether she's going to start her own party.
I hate all this. So good. Now I have some details.
Yeah.
I always say, like, we have a problem on the left that we cannot, like, seem to galvanize people around a figure. Unless we do with, like, Jeremy Corbyn and everyone's excited and singing at Glastonbury. And, like, let Jeremy Corbyn, like, personally, he wouldn't be my best pal, but politically much better for the country than what they fucking have now. That's a tangent. I'm drunk. Cut this out. Right.
This is the best bit.
We need to unify somehow the left and get a bit better at, like, the right is really good at branding. That's what populism does. People don't want to... I always say this, I get these emails from the left-wing organisation, Brilliant. It's like 975 paragraphs. It's so boring. I'm just like, tell me what I need to do. What's it, like... make it a bit sexier. Make it like brand it better so people are going to vote for it, and you're not turning them off by being like hyper politically correct so that it gets really boring and weird and people think you're strange. So there's the image problem, I think, on the left, right? And we need someone to kind of like unify that, and this is what Wagenknecht is obviously stepping into. And she is missing something. It's always this thing of like, but who is looking after the workers, the ordinary people who are socially conservative but also care about poor people? First of all, do these people exist? Like, I don't know. Like, I know of people who are like very self-centered and kind of like, oh yeah, everyone has to work for their money and no matter who they are, and like, I don't really care about people's pronouns. But like, empathy is kind of a way of life. Like, if you like, I question that demographic, and like you just said, how big it is. I think it is always easier to just say, well, we're going to court this vote from the AfD, and that's fine. And if you're drawing votes away from the AfD, then maybe fine. But also, what are you standing for then? Because the AfD don't actually have any policies. And if your policy is just being like anti-immigration and just vote for me because I speak your language, then you're just the AfD. Like, you're not. It's not like the AfD have this like really. They might be a bit more free markety or whatever, but they don't really stand for anything in any meaningful, scary way in terms of fiscal policy that you're speaking against. Do they?
No.
Are they slash all the benefits, no one gets benefits? They might be.
They will vote for. If you see the AfD's voting record, they're always against poor people. But
okay. All right, so that is bad. That is bad. Ignore what I just said.
But that's not their policy. Their policy is stop immigration. I mean, that's all they care
their policy is racism, like pure and simple.
Yeah.
And if you're courting that vote through racism, then you're kind of like, we can't have the unifying, or we're not going to look after the real left if we're not going to start redrawing the parameters of what it is to be politically left wing, to say like, we no longer. It's like, we're going to look after the people, but only these people. Like, that's not what being left wing is. And I actually think that there is so much space, and it's shown time and time and time again when people actually, and that is what the job of like decent politicians and people should do. You go to your constituents and you say, well, look, you seem to have a divide between trans people and workers. Trans people are also workers. It makes no sense to me. I'm really drunk. I can't remember. I had this whole thing in my head and I was like, what? This makes sense. But like, do you know?
Can I tell you another Wagenknecht fact that will make you feel vindicated and also annoy you at the same time? Björn Höcke, who you remember, invited Wagenknecht to defect to join the AfD.
Yeah.
Now this says two things. This says, firstly, that obviously, on the one hand, he sees a lot of things that she says that he would recognise in his supporters. But on probably more importantly, it also says that he is strategically a little bit scared of her. And especially, you know, because he would like that. I mean, that would be like a massive coup for him. Because he's the leader of the AfD in Thuringen, where the AfD is also doing really well. Yeah. And which is also having an election next year. And I
really dislike Björn.
Yeah, he's awful, yeah.
He's horrendous. But it's the fact that he used to be a teacher and a history teacher in fucking Germany. It makes me want to fucking kotzen.
And also, even amongst AfD voters, they found that that Wagenknecht was more popular than Alice Weidel, who is the leader of the AfD on a national level in the Bundestag. I think that's partly just her personality. Like, she's a bit more of a she's a bit better at speaking than Weidel, and you know, she's a bit more of a media presence. But it's quite interesting still that even amongst the AfD voters, they like Wagenknecht more than their own leader, and that she's still. I mean, we shouldn't forget she's still a member of the Socialist Left Party, and and she still feels this commitment to this. Clearly feels this, and she's really an old school communist almost. You know, like she was a member of the SED, which was the you know, her parents met in Thüringen. She kind of partly grew up in Jena, which is in Thüringen.
It's where the two kind of political spectrums start to kind of like loop back on themselves. And I think like I don't want to fall into that trap of being like, well, we can't have kind of an extreme version of socialism or communism because look what happened in the 20th century and look at all these places. I'm like, yeah, but that was like a shit version of it. That was like, we took 1984 and we're like, do that. And I was like, well, no, probably not. And then everyone takes it just like as this like, well, communism will never work out. Socialism is whatever. That's not human nature. Despite looking at like the huge, massive disasters of capitalism that we just run over and over and over and over again. But I do think with that kind of like old school 20th century communism and that extreme state control, you then just, it becomes like fascist in a way. And there's all of that. And I'm like, well, that's not the way. I mean, it is a way to win voters from the AfD and further your own career. And this is also then kind of territory we get into because like, she also seems like someone who is courting her own personal gain. She's not really into the idea of
but I also
furthering.
I mean,
the
she
party.
does really believe what she says. I mean, I don't think she's not that cynical.
Yeah.
I mean, she does think those things.
Yeah,
It's
which
just
is
that
worrying then, because then would you not have the self-reflection if you're a dyed-in-the-wool socialist to be like, right, well, why am I being invited to join a far-right party, and how do I feel about like?
Yeah,
we have to find
She's not at least not publicly. She's not in.
Is it just like no one decent goes into politics? Is this like the issue? Like it's just always been like, why won't the politicians do this? And like, they just don't have it in them because it's all just like.
No, I think there are decent politicians.
I know, but they're going to be like slaving away doing like council work and like making fuck all like doing amazing work for years. And getting so little recognition for it.
Well, I would like to... Can I just defend politicians a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. Please do.
Because...
Are you about to launch your political career? Yes, Konrad! Vote Konrad!
No, I was just trying to find a way of winding up with something light. And I mentioned earlier that my mum's in town. Mm-hmm. She got herself the €49 ticket. And she just says... She's like 82... Mm-hmm. And she just loves this €49 ticket. It's really made her whole life so much easier.
Yeah.
And done loads of good things. And I said to her that, well, that's what Chancellor Scholz and the Green Party, they brought it in, you know. And it really and I said like, if the CDU get into power, that's probably the first thing that'll go. And she was like really hoping that it would stay because it's like you know. She said like sometimes when you want to go one stop. You can just, now I can just go I don't have to pay for an extra ticket to go one stop because I want to just go down the road, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to say that. And she went all the way on holiday to Rügen.
Oh, she took because that's like what everyone, so the €49 ticket is valid on everything in Berlin, all of your city transport, all over Germany.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's for all the local transport and all the regional transport. And
so
only
the slowest regional trains. Sorry, that sounds like I'm being really like. They're still like fucking better than like UK trains. Like the shittest trains Germany has to offer. But what's fun is like the North Coast and the Baltic Sea and the North Sea, where all people, particularly from Berlin, like to go on holiday. It's only reachable by regional train. They don't have the other fancy trains.
Yeah, and it's loads cheaper now to go there because of the €49 ticket.
It's great. Like, maybe, I mean, this is the thing. We can do great things. We're going to allow 16-year-olds to vote. This is brilliant. I think we have this cynicism, and I obviously play into this, about politics. Like, there is room for someone on the left to come and say, hey...
I know.
Workers of all pronouns and all genders. Like, someone to talk to that demographic in, not a way going like, well, I'm just going to assume that because you're white and working class, you're racist. There's so much assumption that happens there. And I think that's either it's like patronizing and stereotyping, but also maybe try and have a conversation with those people. Like, is that not also your job kind of as a politician to go, hey, this is what I stand for?
I totally agree. And all it takes is a bit of political imagination is what I think as well. I mean,
yes,
like,
that's imagination. Like, no one has any fucking imagination and going, do you know what? Instead of playing this cynical game of like, oh, we better appeal to the working class and we've been appealing to the wrong kind of working class, let's go for the racists. I'm like, well, could we maybe ask them not to be so racist?
And not just play everyone off against each other.
Exactly.
Not just like, why not just bring in a policy that everyone needs and enjoys, like the €49 ticket.
€49 ticket, universal basic income. I have had exactly one conversation about universal basic income in Crete with a man that I just met, but I knew his mum because she lives opposite my mum. And I walked into the bar, I was the only person there, and I knew his mum had said to me, going down the hill in Crete, I was like, my son's in that bar. And I walked in, he was the only person in the bar. I was like, are you so-and-so? And he was like, yes. Anyway, this is what happens in this small Greek village that my mum lives in. We started talking about universal income. And he starts going, he's English, and he's like, no, I don't believe in giving people money for like, no. And I was like, but what? You're willing to give up $1,000 and a half a month just so that people don't get something for nothing? And he was like, what? I was like, yeah, everyone gets it. And he was like, what? And I was like, yeah. Everyone gets the money. He was like, oh, well, I'd 100% vote for that.
I know. Yeah.
That is the massive misunderstanding with universal basic income.
It's like, what? Yeah, it's universal. That's the whole point.
Like, how much do you distrust people on benefits enough to give up $1,000 a month to prove that point? Nah, you fucking don't. Yeah, no one's principles are worth that much.
Yeah, you just get to keep it. You just get to keep that grand. Okay. Well,
Universal basic income, 49 ticket. Let's have some political imaginations.
Brilliant.
Wouldn't that be nice?
I think that's enough for today.
Oh my God, yeah. I'm so Thank you very much for listening, everybody.
Thank you. This has been a blast.
It has been. Thank you, Konrad, for the news, as always.
Bye.
Bye.